Okay, we're getting more highs, and I'm really glad that all of you are coming in today. And I hope that this session can help you with your goals when it comes to networking on LinkedIn. So I want to start a little bit by giving my introduction. My name is Kajal. I'm a robotics software engineer. I've worked in the industry for more than 3 years now. On the side, I also have a YouTube channel where I talk primarily about robotics. And then once in a while, I also talk about career growth and do interviews with people who are already in the industry so they can share their lessons and insights with all of us. Now, the important thing I actually want to start with is I used to be an introvert. Growing up, I used to struggle talking to people, and it wasn't very natural for me to just go up to someone and talk. Because the very first thing used to be like, okay, what do you say beyond how are you? It's that constant thing like, what do you talk about? And it took me a while, but I came to a point where I realized that I needed to change this about myself so I can get access to more opportunities. Like, I truly believe networking is a great way sometimes to find more opportunities. And then you can decide if that is something you want to pursue or not. But yeah, definitely having that opportunity makes a huge difference. I also want to share this really fun story that happened with me. I'd applied to a company and I had cleared a coding interview and then I just hadn't heard back. But because of networking, I was able to get in touch with someone who's working at the company through one of our common friends. And then after getting in touch with them, we had a very informal conversation. He wanted to know about me. And then he's like, yeah, you should totally join our company. You should apply. I think you'd be a great fit. And I was like, yeah, I did apply and I haven't heard back. It'd be great if you could check on my application and also give me some feedback if I didn't make it. And here's what happened. My application had just got stuck in someone's email. Like I'd cleared the round and they were supposed to schedule me, but someone dropped the ball somewhere along the line. And this networking helped me, I say, jumpstart my interview session again. I interviewed and had an offer within a week. So this networking has this huge power of bringing opportunities, helping restart things that might have fallen off. But as I said, opportunities opportunities to pursue dreams, opportunities to find more information. For example, we can all go online today and search about, like, okay, what does a data scientist do? But sometimes it's very tricky to find information about what it is like to work for a specific company. What is it to work for data science in a small company? Or let's say you've applied somewhere or you're deciding between offers and you want to find out what it's really like. That's where networking comes in. So here's my very first thing when it comes to networking. Have a clear goal, even if it's just to get information or to have a conversation with someone. That will help guide a lot of things. And this is also true for LinkedIn. Just because LinkedIn is a social media network doesn't mean that you don't have to network, you don't have to have a conversation. To me, networking is equivalent to conversation. So aim about having a conversation. Also, when you reach out to people just blindly asking for very specific things without taking the effort to get to know them, it doesn't work out great. So, I want to give this one very great example, which I think most of us can relate to, is the referrals. We all know that referrals are a great way to get interview calls and get your foot in the door for specific companies. Now, if you just cold message someone like, hey, stranger, I don't know you, but can you refer me? I have never gotten a response out of that, but if someone has, great. But I can tell you for sure the response rate is extremely low. However, if you ask something like, hey, I want to know more about this position, I am looking for a referral, but I want the opportunity to talk more about my needs as well as to get to know you and your experience in the company, you're more likely to get a yes. And it's not just me saying I have applied this technique. I've also had people who've applied this technique and then message me that, hey, I did this, it worked, I got a referral, and I got an offer, and I'm joining on XYZ date. So trust me, this works. Now, here's one thing if you're very conscious about things, and I absolutely love this. This is my tagline, I say it a lot: ask for a coffee chat. Even on LinkedIn, you can ask for a virtual coffee chat. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a Zoom call where you have your video on. It can still end up being a phone call type of a conversation where it's just audio. But yeah, here's the thing. When you say coffee, it's equivalent to saying casual. And I'm asking that ask someone for a 15-minute coffee chat. And you reach out to people and you ask them big questions, or if you ask them for 1 hour or half an hour, people are hesitant because it's like, oh, I don't know if I can find half an hour in my calendar on my this crazy busy day filled with meetings. However, if you ask someone for a casual coffee chat for 15 minutes, you're more likely to get yes. So like literally, if you have to write it down somewhere, do, but say, can I have a coffee chat with you? Or hey, I'm interested in knowing more about working at this company. Would you be open to a 15-minute coffee chat? And it works really well. I do see some messages where people are like, I struggle with this networking thing. So, yes, because of this, number one tip is coffee, which equals casual. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily drink coffee, but it kind of sets the tone. If you're talking to someone very formal, and especially when I was an introvert, it used to put more pressure on me. But if it's casual coffee chat, it kind of tones down things and it makes it a little easier to approach someone. That being said, let's now talk about conversation. What type of conversations to have? Now, if those of you who joined in the start, I didn't just ask how are you. I asked how's your day going, and I kind of gave you an example of, hey, I'm having a good bright day because I can see clear skies from my office. So that is what I mean by having good questions to ask during conversation. Now, I know a lot of people will say that, hey, ask about weather. I'm of the opinion, don't ask about weather. You can mention it, but don't necessarily ask what the weather is because it's a very boring topic. There isn't a lot you can talk about beyond, okay, sunshines are good, okay, clouds are good, okay, clouds are not good, it's raining, it's not raining, that's it. And the conversation kind of comes to a halt. For you to have a good networking session or a good conversation, you want a topic that you can expand into. So here's an example that works well. Music. Asking someone about what type of music they like to listen, you can find common ground. You can talk about artists, you can talk about songs. So let me give you an example. This happened on one of my Uber rides. We were just having a conversation about music. So I was like, hey, I really like Demi Lovato's music. I like how she's, the songs she comes up with. And that went into a conversation about how some actors who've come from Disney and how they've grown. We went on to talk about Miley Cyrus and then Hilary Duff and all of these actors. So the point here is just from one simple conversation about, hey, I like Demi Lovato's music, to we went on to a conversation for 10 minutes and we both enjoyed it. Like she gave me a 5 star, I gave her a 5 star. It was a nice ride for both of us. So the same goes with conversations you're having with others. Even if you have specific goals, sometimes having a casual conversation about things not weather related, which is boring and can come to a halt really fast, but on topics like music, which are fun to talk about, you can have differences and that's fine too. And at the same time, it's not something that'll get you in trouble. So, for example, I never suggest people to talk about politics because it can get heated, but it's also very weird when someone have different opinion and they might feel uncomfortable to talk about. Versus if you talk about music, I don't know a lot of people who, even if they don't like my kind of music, they feel bad about it. I think music is one of those topics where people feel it's okay to have differentiating opinions. I still have more to talk about, but I also want to take a moment to ask anyone if they have some specific questions. Please put it in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. And I also see a lot of people are dropping their LinkedIn profile. Great job. Because I'm talking, it's a little tricky for me to keep an eye, but if the chat stays, I will do my best to try and connect with each one of you. And you should do the same. Feel free to drop a connection request to me. Okay, now we talked about conversation to get started. Now let's talk about getting to the meat of the conversation and asking for things. So for example, coming back to referrals. For example, you want to get a referral and you feel like if you ask just saying, "Hey, can I get a referral?" Trust me, the likelihood is going to be less and no. But at the same time, if you have something to say and add, it helps. So for example, hey, I'd like to get a referral. I also want to get the opportunity to get to know you and more about what your day looks like at this particular company. Now, When you start talking about these things, you can talk about and ask questions that is easier for someone to answer. So don't ask questions like, hey, what's your boss like? Because that can get tricky. But at the same time, you can ask questions like, what's the work environment like? How does the communication happen? What are some of the things that you like about this company? Instead of asking dislike, you can also often ask something like, what are the things that you would do differently? The subtle point that I'm trying to make here is ask for questions that are not difficult to answer, can get you some really good insights, and most importantly, give the person an out. Let's say if you want to ask an uncomfortable question, but when you say something like, hey, what are the things you don't like? Now, even if they have things and they don't want to say those things, it becomes an uncomfortable conversation. But if you ask, like, okay, what are the things you would change? Or what are the things you would like to do differently? It's not putting them in a tough position, but at the same time, they can be like, I'm not sure, I'll think about it. And that's a good out for them to have as well. Okay, I want to look at some questions as well. Is there any etiquette when approaching someone in LinkedIn? Connect first or message first? So the way LinkedIn works is unless you're on a premium this thing, you can't message people. There are a few hacks around it. I can share if people want me to. But it's a good idea to connect and put your message kind of in there. Now, I know the message length is short, but you can use that to your advantage where you don't want to write a long message. You want to keep it quick and crisp. Definitely add a note. Instead of sending a blank connection request, sending even a small message will set you apart. Like I get, I would say, upward of 20 connection requests a day. And anyone who's put a note just instantly strikes out from the crowd. One being it helps you kind of get in front of all the other requests. Two, you've now started a conversation because that's the goal, right? I've seen so many people who connect with me, but I'll never hear back from them. So it's very great advantage to connect and add a notes, essentially a message plus a connection request combined and get the conversation started. That being said, let's say you did send in a connection request. Maybe they didn't answer your question, but they accepted it. Go ahead and send a message being like, hey, thank you for connecting with me. I see XYZ on your profile. These are some great things that I would like to know more about. Can we have a coffee chat? Can we have a 15-minute coffee chat? It really works great. Okay, another question. Does network really help when you don't have any past references? I'm guessing by past references, you mean you've not worked before. Yes, it still works. The very first internship that I got was through networking. I didn't know anyone. So, in fact, here's a really interesting thing. I come from a family of business people. No one in my immediate family has ever worked in a corporate job, so I had zero clue starting out what to even expect. And it was through networking that I was able to get internships and things like that. So it's completely okay if you've not worked in the past. And that's another reason why people say you should network when you don't really need it. So when you do, it's much easier to ask for help. So, for example, right now, even if you don't have any particular goal, but you've had a conversation with me about any random thing, then later when you do need a job and you're looking at my company and you ask me for a referral, or even if you ask me to push your resume to a HR or something, I'm more likely to say yes because we've had a conversation in the past versus being complete strangers. Okay. Another question. I can't send connecting invitations for this week because I reached the weekly limit. So I will connect with you. Oh, okay, that's great. I'm actually liking the fact that you've reached your limit, means you're trying out. Sometimes you have to, put out so many arrows out in the world for one of them to hit. And I do hope you connect with all of us next week. Okay. Next question is, my son is in high school STEM and he needed to find an internship. I helped him set up LinkedIn and he has had two recruiters from a post he made looking for an internship in engineering. That is so great. I'm so happy that you shared your story. And this gives me a great segue into my next section, posts. Don't just wait for people to have a conversation with you. Posts are a great way to interact. So, okay, one is you putting out content, and two is you interacting with other people's content. So let's talk about the second one first. When you go into someone's profile, what you can do is, other than connect, you can look at the see all activity from the last 90 days and then you can look on the posts that they have made, and then you can put a comment on that or something like that and get your interaction started. And there have been times where I have commented on other people's content just because I found it helpful, or I had a question or something like that. And those people have reached out and connected with me, and we've had wonderful conversations. So go ahead and make posts or interact with posts. Now, when it comes to making posts, there are different ways to do things. You can either share a story, you can talk about your own lessons and learnings. Here's a really nice one. Talk about the mistakes you've made. Now, if you can't think of anything, share resources. That's a really great way to help out and get started with interaction. So, for example, today, or in these last 2 days and the one day coming forward, all of you have attended Women Tech Global Conference. You can put a post about something you learned from someone's session. You can talk about my session where you learned about the coffee chat thing and share that. You can talk about some other session where you learned something, or you can be like, hey, wow, this is such a brilliant idea, and I'm so glad I learned it here. I would like to share it with everyone else. And now here's a really good interesting part. Tag the person whose session you attended. Two advantages: one, they will really appreciate that you are sharing their message even further. Second, because you tagged them, all of their network will see this as well, so you're getting more eyeballs onto your post. Because networking is not just about looking for jobs and having that, it's also about having conversations and kind of expanding your horizon for the future. You might not necessarily be looking for something now, but because you've had conversations with people and you've kept in touch, or even if you've had some interaction and that history is there on LinkedIn chat or LinkedIn comments, you will you will have a much higher chance of getting that job or getting that request from them when you need it. So think long term when it comes to networking. So yeah, go ahead, post, share your lessons, share your learnings, share your failures, share about mistakes you've made. I already said resource. Another good thing to share is videos or articles summary. So, like, let's say you watched a 15-minute video or you read a book, and while the book has a lot, you can take two or three key insights from that book and put it in. So, for example, there's a book called, I forgot the title, it's about how to negotiate. So I learned that. And from there, one thing I learned, or the one thing that stayed with me, was when you're negotiating, instead of just asking for things you want, you should also ask for how do they expect you to do things that they are asking for, that they are negotiating for. So when you use that how, the other person kind of gets thinking, and then they can be like, oh, okay, this ask that I'm asking is reasonable, or versus this ask I'm asking is not reasonable. So that kind of stayed with me. Now, if I apply it to my own life and then put it as a post, that's a great way to get a conversation started. Like, people will share in their experiences, or if they learn from it, they go apply it. And trust me, if someone sees your post, applies it, and it finds it helpful, they will definitely message you, and that feels so good. And now you've had a conversation that you can look to into the future. So just think about those things. Yes. Someone commented, never split the difference. That's exactly the book I'm talking about. So, see, there you go. I was just talking about this book, and because someone else has read it, they put it in the chat. And that's exactly the same thing that you'll see on LinkedIn posts. Where you start talking about things, people will refer other things. That is also another great thing. Let's say you're looking for book recommendations, or you're looking for documentary recommendations, or something like that. You can put that as a question, and you will get great responses. And then let's say you do find some movie that you go ahead and watch and you enjoyed, send them a message being like, hey, I read this book you recommended, I loved it, and the conversation got started. So this is what networking to me is about: figuring out how to start a conversation and then let it just flow naturally. Okay, here's another comment from one of the attendees. I moved countries and I had to network in my original country. So when I started networking in the new country, somehow the algorithm did not help me with that. So I created a new profile. What advice do you give to someone in my position who's relocating and relying on LinkedIn for networking? So in general, with algorithms, not just LinkedIn, I see this on Instagram also. Sometimes when I've watched one video, it'll recommend 10 more of that type. And even if I try to go away from it, it just keeps sending me back to the old one. So I would do is I would go to this new video that I like and I'll just interact more. On purpose, I'll go like or comment more on this other content I want to see. So the algorithm finally picks it up. The same I would say for LinkedIn. I know it's a little tricky, but if you keep at it, it will start recommending you the other people. That being said, LinkedIn is also a really good searching network. So I often find this surprising that people don't know this. But on LinkedIn, there's a search bar. Don't just use it for names. So, for example, if you've moved to a new country, for example, let's say Japan, and you are looking for people to network in Japan, you can literally write Japan in that search bar and it'll show you people. That being said, here's a more advanced feature. Let's say you're looking for data science roles or people within that field to network. On the search bar, type data science and then go into more filters. And then in that more filters, there's an option called country. And I think you can also search it down to the city level that you are in. And then that way it'll show you people in that particular domain. And then, like I said, go to their profile, interact with their posts, and hopefully the algorithm will pick it up that, hey, you've moved and this is what you're more interested in now. And I hope that helps. Okay. Here's another one. How can we manage the algorithm? I get people I would not connect with wanting to connect with me with the comment, you keep coming up as someone I should connect. To be honest, I don't really see that section more. I don't pay a lot of attention to it because, like, based on this interaction, I feel the algorithm doesn't really do a great job in suggesting people to me. So I use the search bar more, where I will go and look for specific key terms. I'll filter by city, I'll filter by titles, and that way I find it more easy to connect with people. Another question: do recruiters put a value on your connections when they consider for your role? How important is the plus 500 connections? Absolutely not important. I have not known a single recruiter who's looked at the number of connections. Uh, yeah, I would say this one thing for sure though. Recruiters are often bombarded with way more requests. So when it comes to recruiter, they are searching based on keywords. So the suggestion I would give you is go to your profile and try to optimize it to include the keywords for the jobs you're looking for. Like after I did my LinkedIn optimization, I get a lot of messages from recruiters looking to fill particular jobs. So with recruiters, especially on LinkedIn, because there are so many more job seekers, they often get bombarded with more messages. So, in my personal experience with recruiters, it's much better to have an incoming flow. So, try to optimize your profile with keywords such that you show up in their search bar. And I have known recruiters who search and look for candidates based on keywords, like they're trying to fill a particular role. So sometimes what they'll do is, let's say they're looking for a senior software engineer in AI, they'll look and search for people who are currently software engineers in AI. So they'll search with those title in the advanced feature and they will find people that they can poach or approach for senior software engineers. So kind of think in that particular aspect. Okay, another question. Should you put in settings that you would prefer to be followed than connected? Does this change depending on where you are in your career? I would say yes. So, for example, a lot of people include, like I have done this, I've gone from connect to follow because I see that a lot of people will connect with me, but then never interact with me, like never send me a message, or even if I send a message, sometimes they won't respond. So, one of the reasons I changed it was so that I can maintain that connected to people who actually interact with me. That being said, LinkedIn does have a limit on how many people you can connect with. I don't know the exact number. So when people reach that limit, they generally tend to change it from connection to follow so that they can still have interactions, but not go over the limit and not be able to accept requests. So that is one reason people do it. I don't see a lot of difference with it either ways. Because even if someone has a preference of follow, and if you want to have a conversation, you can go ahead and connect. In fact, I would say this. Let's say you send someone a connection request and you're not getting a response. When you're sending that connection request, also go ahead and follow because they'll get a notification. And that kind of puts you on an edge compared to all the other people who send a connection request. Because let's say if you follow someone, they'll go look at your profile and then they'd be like, oh, this person has sent me a request. And there's a higher likelihood of that being accepted. Okay, our next question. What's your advice on LinkedIn invitations from unknown people? What should be considered when accepting those? So now different people have different preferences. So one thing I definitely want to say upfront, if you don't feel comfortable or if someone gives you creepy vibes, it's completely okay to reject connection request. That being said, I don't think anyone will punish you for not accepting their connection request. I don't think people even get notified if you didn't accept their connection request. Some of the reasons to accept and reject kind of depends on your goal. So for example, let's say you're currently in the field of data science and you want to go and switch to the field of sales. So now LinkedIn, because it's an algorithm, it'll see that most of your connections are in a particular domain. So it'll keep suggesting you all of those. So at that time, maybe it's a good idea to stop accepting connection requests from that domain and accept it from this other domain that you want to enter into. So kind of the algorithm starts showing you content towards this other domain that you're more interested in. So there's this one person called Vaibhav Shishenti. He puts out really good content, and one of the contents, that piece of content that he talks about, is exactly this: that LinkedIn algorithm, it will show you content based on the connections that you have in your industry or domain. So one of the things he suggests is if you're switching industry, it's okay to start dropping your connections, not just rejecting, but also dropping connections you've had from past that no longer applies to you, so you can get the algorithm to change directions and start showing you people from this other domain. I hope that helps answer your question. So I know we are reaching the time limit. I do want to say that if I didn't get to your question, I'm sorry. Feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I'll do my best to answer. Not just that, I have a YouTube channel. Feel free to go check out the content, put comments out there. I'm more likely to respond to comments because they catch my eye more easily. But I'll do my best to answer LinkedIn messages as well. Also, please go through the chat, connect with people who you vibe with. And I'm really, really happy that all of you took the time to come here. And I would just like to reiterate, use the 15-minute coffee chat to get your way into new opportunities and have conversations. Even if you're not looking for something particular, networking is having conversations. Focus on that, and networking becomes much more easy. Don't just think about end goal. Think about it as people whom you are interacting with, something you get to learn, something like, you get a different point of view, all those kinds of things, and it will change your interaction completely. I see so many thank you messages. I am so glad that my tips are helpful to you, and all the very best with your networking. Um, Let me see if I can answer one more question. Okay. Okay. My LinkedIn is still pretty blank because I don't have much experience and I don't yet know where I want my life to go, but I would love to connect. Great. I would love to connect with you as well. In terms of experience, it doesn't necessarily always have to be your professional experience. You can talk about your group projects, you can talk about things you've done outside of schools. So here's one thing that definitely helps me: do mention your activities on LinkedIn because it helps with conversation. People every day have conversations very specific to, certain meetings, getting work done. People love talking about other stuff. So that way, and in fact, that's also a great way to kind of break the ice. Let's say someone's looking to connect with you or you're looking to connect with someone, go through their hobbies and activities and kind of use that as a connection request message than just the same stuff that people are used to saying. You doing something different will definitely catch people's eye. Okay, let's see if I missed any questions. I don't think I missed any questions, but if I did, do drop it in the chat. And once again, thank you very much for coming and joining me. I really enjoyed speaking with everyone here. And yes, do reach out to me. I'll do my best to stay connected. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to see these comments and find that other people found my information helpful. Yes, please take my experience, take my lessons, and do better than me.